Today's daf we're going to be learning is Bava Kamma daf Kufchet. Shabbat Tov to everyone. Today's daf is sponsored by Yafa Wenner in loving memory of her mom, Leah Steinlauf. My mother enjoyed the pursuit of knowledge. She loved the challenge it presented. I think my learning daf Yomi would make her smile and chuckle. How far we've come as women in our journey. Today's daf is sponsored by Sylvia Klein in loving memory of her father, Sherman Israel Klein, Shneir ben Yerachmael V'Sava. He loved learning the Jewish people, Israel, and his family. Everything was interesting to him. We continue to learn from his example. We're going to get started today with the bottom of Kuf Zayin Amud Bet. So we've been discussing the fact, we mentioned previously, that the kefel and chomesh payment don't come together. If you're paying the double payment, you don't pay the chomesh, the fifth payment, because you don't pay the kefel and the chomesh. The question is why and what exactly is causing this, and what would be the ramifications of that question. So we ended with this in last class. By Rami Bar Chama, 3 lines from the bottom of Kuf Zayin Amud Bet. Mamon hamechayev kefel potarto min hachomesh, o dilma shvuah mechayevto kefel potarto min hachomesh. What is exactly causing the fact that you're not going to be liable both the double payment if you steal? Again, you steal from, right? Let's say you stole from the shomer, okay, or right, it could be, right, it could be you're the shomer who lied, okay? And then, anyway, there could be all sorts of cases, but you're not going to pay the kefel and the chomesh. Is it because, right, when we're talking about a case where you took an oath, you lied under oath, so I'm watching your object, okay? We'll talk about this case throughout today, where I'm watching an object, I'm a shomer chinam, I don't get paid for it. I can exempt myself from claiming it was lost or stolen, but I really stole it myself. So I claim that under oath. So if I claimed it was stolen and I'm lying, I can be liable to pay kefel. But if I lied and took an oath and said it was stolen and then admitted that I lied, then I pay the chomesh. But I can't pay both payments. Why can't I pay both payments? Is it because we're only talking about one object and one object can't obligate you both kefel and chomesh? Or is it because there's one oath that I took and one oath can't make you liable for both those payments, okay? And that would be in a case where there's an oath going on, and that's what we're going to eventually learn the answer from. What if this case where there is no oath because you're just a robber? A regular robber is actually chayav kefel also, right? There's 2 kinds of robbers that are chayav kefel. One is a regular robber, has to pay double when they steal. The second is the shomer chinam, let's say, right? This person who's watching your item for free, which is me, and I lie under oath that it was stolen from me, I have to pay kefel. So why do we care whether either which way I don't pay kefel in the keren? So why do we care if it's the fact that we're talking about one object or the fact that we're talking about one oath? So the Gemara explains, Hechidami, last line of Kuf Zayin Amud Bet, Kigon sheta'an ta'anat ganav v'nishba, v'chazar v'ta'an ta'anat avav v'nishba. What if I claim under oath that it was stolen from me, and then I decide to take another oath about it, and I say, oh, by the way, it wasn't really lost. It wasn't really stolen. It was lost from me. Okay, I make a second claim. First of all, what's the difference between to'en tanat ganav and to'en tanat avad? Remember, if I claim it was lost, I don't pay kefel on that. Okay, that's not the relevance for here, but it's just a different, in this case, we'd have to have a kefel. That's why they started with to'en tanat ganav. But let's say I take 2 oaths. Now, if I take 2 oaths and then now we can have a case where there's one keren, one object I was watching, but 2 oaths. And on one oath, I was caught with witnesses, and that would be the first oath, because if I was caught with witnesses that I lied, witnesses claimed it's in my house and I claimed it was lost, I'd only be liable to pay the value of the item. There was no kefel. It's only kefel if I claim it was stolen and lied about it. But witnesses came and proved that I, on the first claim, and said, you stole it. And then I admitted in court that I lied about the second claim. Okay? Now, in this case, by the way, it could be that first I lied under oath, because it's hard to understand how this all came about. Let's say I lied under oath. Then I was liable to pay the kefel. Then, and because witnesses came, then I claimed after that it got lost. And then I admitted that I had done that. Now, this is all relating to one object, but there's 2 different oaths I took. So, do we say, here comes the real question now. It's all one item. because it's one item, and it's the one item that is the reason, and this is one side of the coin. If we say it's the money and the fact that there's only one item at stake here, then I can't pay both kefel and chomesh on that one item. And I already was chayiv kefel, so I'm not going to have to pay the chomesh. Oh, Dilma, or do we say shvuah mechayiv to kefel porta tomen chomesh? Or do we say it's the fact that one oath can't make me liable, but here there's two oaths. So really, in this case, I would pay the kefel on the first oath. And because I admitted the second one, I'd have to add the chomesh to the second claim. So hashvua batraita, and then the second oath would actually make me liable for the chomesh payment. So that's the question, and that's the ramification for the question, because in a regular case, there's no ramification. There's one mamon and one shvua. So Amahad, Tashma, let's learn it from here. Okay, we saw this case before. Someone goes to someone in the marketplace and says, where's my shore that you stole? Now, in this case, it's not a shomer case, okay? Now, V'hu omer lo ganavti. And the guy says, I didn't steal your shore. Must be a chani. Are you willing to take an oath about it? Amal, amen. And he says, yes, I'll take an oath about it. Now, let's say he didn't take an oath, okay? And let's say, okay, come witnesses and say this guy stole, even though he denied the claim. Now, what makes him pay the kefel in this case? Not the oath that he took, because this isn't a shomer case. It's not a case where I said before, where I'm watching your object for free and I claim that it was stolen from me, and that's why I became, obligated. But no, in this case, he stole. And there's witnesses that say you stole, and anyone who steals has to pay kefel. So because of that, now let's see what happens. So mishalem tashlume kefel. So if witnesses came again, okay, let's say Naomi goes to Ruth and says, you stole my shore, and Ruth says, I don't know what you're talking about, denies the claim, takes an oath, and then Edim come. Okay, we're now going to have two, and then we'll go into two options. Either witnesses come, and if witnesses come, Ruth has to pay kefel. Let's say Ruth stole, because there's proof she stole. Again, really not connected to the oath. Why is the oath here? Well, because they want to tell you that im hodame atzmo, if Ruth comes and admits and says, listen, I lied under oath, then what happens? Mishalem keren b'chomesh v'asham. Because she lied under oath, she now has to pay not just the value of the item she stole, but the chomesh and the asham also. She has to pay an extra fifth because she lied under oath about it. That's the relevance of why the shvuah is here. Okay, now, notice here, they're going to tell you, now, if the edim are mechayev kefel, it seems obvious that hoda me'atzmo in aval hoda achar edim lo. There's edim, right? They want to tell you here, number one, it's the edim, and this I already told you from the beginning, it's the edim that bring in the kefel payment, not the oath. Now, when it gets to so again, we're going to separate these two items, and this is exactly what we were looking for. We want to say, well, the fact that witnesses came, you have to pay kefel. The shvuah has nothing to do with that. So it's not like the shvuah was used for, the oath was because of the kefel. The oath, all it had to do was the chomesh payment. Now, what does it say here? Hoda me'atzmo'in, aval hoda har edim lo. This gave you two possibilities. Either witnesses came, and that sounds like, and that you're going to pay kefel, and that's it. If you admitted without there being witnesses, then you pay the chomesh, which makes it sound like you wouldn't pay the chomesh if you admitted after the witnesses came. Why? Because there isn't kefel in chomesh, even though the kefel doesn't come from the oath. So what do you see here? If you say it's because one oath can't make you pay both kefel, double payment, and the chomesh, the fifth payment, now again, it's just an inference, but they're assuming that if you admitted if you admitted after witnesses already came, sounds like you wouldn't pay the chomesh. Only admitting instead of witnesses coming would you pay the chomesh. So michte hashvua lo kamachayiv lekfela, and the shvua wasn't machayiv the kefel. So you can't say it's the shvua. You can't, because really you could say very simply, you pay the kefel because you stole, and you pay the chomesh because you lied under oath. And those would be two separate things, and that would work. The fact that we don't say that, right? So this shvuah was lo mechayev kefel, and therefore it should be mechayev chomesh if you think it's that you don't pay both on one oath. So therefore, it must be the other possibility, which is the reason why you don't have to pay chomesh here if already witnesses came and made you liable for the kefel, is because it's because it's the money. You don't pay kefel and chomesh on the same item. In the end, this was all about the shiur. Okay, so because it was all about the shiur, you're not going to pay double payment and a fifth payment on one animal. And that must be the reason. Because again, this is a regular theft case. It's not a shomer case. So the oath wasn't necessary to make you pay the kefel. So if we can neutralize that issue, right, then we can figure out the answer to our question. Even though that issue was neutralized, right, because the shvua, you could have had the theft caused you the kefel, the shvua caused you the chomesh, and that would have worked. But because this source doesn't say that that's the case, that you would have to pay both, it's because it's all relating to the same object. And with one object, you can't be liable both. So this one we got an answer to. We're going to have a lot of questions today. Some we're going to have answers to. Some we're going to end in teku, which again means we don't have an answer. Abaye Ravina, second question. This one will end with a question. Now this is based on the previous. If we just explained that mammon, one keren can't make you liable, both kefel and chomesh, basically the chomesh, the fifth, is going to be neutralized and you'll only pay the kefel or canceled. So chomesh ukfela betray gavrei mai. Again, another variation of this. So one object can't obligate you to both, but can it obligate two different people? Like let's say there's a case where we're talking about one object that two of us were watching, and then one of us was obligated kefel and one was obligated chomesh. Why would that be? So you'll see right now if you can't figure it out on your own. So both of us are watching the same ox. And they both claimed it was stolen. One took an oath and then it confessed and said, oh, I lied under oath. The other took the oath and didn't confess, but witnesses came. So now you can see. So we have one who theoretically is liable chomesh, the fifth, and one who's liable kefel. So if we say one keren can't cause two payments, doesn't matter if it's two different people, then they'd each have to pay. I'm sorry, then the second one would be exempt, right? You would only pay one anyway, right? Unclear whether maybe the kefel would override, but only when it comes to one person, the Torah said you can't pay both. But maybe here, one pays the chomesh and one pays the kefel, the double payment. Oh, Dilma, or do we take this so far as to say one principal can't make you liable for both payments, and therefore, even though this is two different people, it's one object, and then you wouldn't be able to pay both. So this one, as I told you in the beginning, is going to end in teku. We don't actually know the answer. By Rav Papa, another question. This is, okay, until now we've been discussing two different payments. Kefel chomesh, the kefel overrides the chomesh, and you don't pay both. What if it's trei chumshin or trei kfele b'chal gavrama? Okay, well, you can see this is one of these dapim of just getting off on what if, and let's try all different permutations and let's figure out. So is there a possibility that you could have to pay chomesh twice on one item or kefel twice on one item? What would be the case? Hechidami, sheta'an ta'anat avad v'nishba v'hoda v'chazar v'ta'an ta'anat avad v'nishba v'hoda. You claim the item was lost, which remember, that means if I'm a shomer chinam, I'm watching it for free, I claim under oath that it was lost, I'm exempt. If it turns out it was stolen and that I stole it, I don't pay kefel because I claimed it was lost. I didn't claim it was stolen. So I don't pay the kefel, but I would have to pay the item. But if I come and admit, I have to pay the chomesh. So in this case, I lied under oath twice. So first I lied under oath and then I confessed. And then I again lied under oath. In other words, what happened? I claimed it was lost and really I had it. And then I said, oh, I feel so bad. I really do have it. And then, meaning I stole it. So I have to pay the value of the item, plus I'd have to pay the chomesh. What if I didn't pay? It's still in my property. I didn't give it back to you. And then I claim again that it was lost and I lied and then I confess. So it's the same item, but it was two different oaths. So now, and it's not kefel and chomesh, where we already said that's going to override, even if it's only, right, even if it's two oaths, but because we said it was mammon in the end, but here it's two of the same payments. So now they're going to say, right, or alternatively, by the way, we could give another case. It could be toin tanakanav. It would be the same. Inami kigon sh'ta'an tanakanav v'nishba'u ba'u edim v'chazar v'ta'an tanakanav v'nishba'u ba'u edim. If it's a toin tanakanav case, now we're going to have where I could theoretically have to pay two kefels. I claimed it was stolen, and then witnesses came and said it's in your property. And then before I paid it, so that already I have to pay double. But then I didn't pay it yet, and then I claim again it was stolen, and then witnesses come and say, no, it's still in your property. So could I have to pay two kefel payments there? So then I would pay it, ended up paying 3 times the amount. I pay the value of the item plus kefel on the first and kefel on the second claim. Mi amrina trei gavne mamona ka'amar rachmana delo nishtamu alevecha mamona v'hachacha gavnehu. Is it two types of payments I can't pay? I can't pay kefel and chomesh, both. One will override the other. But two of the same payments I could have to be liable to pay. Or do we say no? Two monetary payments are not paid for one principal, which means it doesn't matter if they're both kefil, it doesn't matter if they're both chomesh, it doesn't matter if there's one kefil, one chomesh, either which way, you don't pay two of these extra payments for one item. Bachanami, right? In this case also, it would be trei mamonim, and it would still be two payments, you wouldn't have to pay them. So that's the question. In this case, we will have an answer. Tashma da'amarava v'chamishitav. Okay, if you remember, we saw this pasuk already. This is if you kol asher yishav alav l'sheker, if you swear falsely. V'shilem oto b'rosho v'chamishitav yosef alav. The nikud is chamishitav, not chamishito. Okay, it says yud vav at the end. It should be just a vav, meaning the fifth payment. Okay, singular. Chamishitav is plural. Plural chomashim, plural fifths. So because it's plural, what do you obviously learn? You could theoretically pay multiple chomesh payments for one item, which seems to indicate that you could also theoretically pay kefel multiple times for one item, like in the case that we saw, shma mina. So we got to an answer for that. Okay, now moving to the next case. Now we're going to have a machloket Abaye and Rava. Now the first thing to know is, if I'm watching your item. This is going to be most of what we're discussing today. I'm watching your item, assuming I'm a shomer chinam, I watch it for free. I can exempt myself, right? Let's say it was stolen. Okay, now in this case, it really was stolen. Now, I can exempt myself by until now, we've been really talking about where I lied under oath, okay? And I claimed it was stolen, but I really stole it. Now we're going to say, it actually was stolen, facts on the ground. But I decide, instead of taking an oath and exempting myself, I'm going to just pay you the money. Okay? This isn't the case we're going to discuss. We're going to talk about a type of, a little change. But let's talk about the basic case first. If I pay for the item and say, I'm assuming responsibility. You asked me to watch your item. I feel terrible that it was stolen. I want to pay for it. This is what we call lifnim mishurat hadin. I don't have to do this, but I can, right? It's beyond the letter of the law. I decide I pay you. Well, in paying you, I buy the rights to that object, basically. So if we find the thief in the end, I get the kefel payment. That thief who really stole has to pay double. I get it because I basically bought rights to the item by paying for it. I didn't have to pay for it, but since I did pay for it, I buy the rights, I get the kefel. So now come Rava and Abaye and ask the following question. What if I didn't pay right away? Okay, Tiva'uhu ba'alim. You come, you gave me your item to watch, you say, where is it? And it got stolen from me. So, you come to the shomer and say, where's my item? Vinishba. And I take an oath and I say it was stolen. But then the next day, something like that, shilem, I decide to pay for it anyway. So the question is, since I first took an oath saying it was stolen, did I not gain the rights to the kefel when I then later paid for it? Or did I? That's going to be the machloket Abaye Rava. V'hukar haganav, and then we find the thief, kefel lemi, who gets the kefel payment. Abaye amar labala pikadon. Abaye says it goes to the person. Okay, it's confusing the language because both are going to talk about pikadon. I'm going to simplify it. Bala pikadon means the owner. Okay, just go with Baal, the owner. The original owner gets the kefel. Why? I didn't acquire it by paying for it because I already took the oath. We'll see in a minute why that is. Rava Amar Lemisha Pikadon Etzlo, who we're going to very simply call the shomer, the watcher, the person watching it gets the kefel, because in the end they paid. So now we're going to see the reasons. Abaye Amar Labala Pikadon, why does the owner get it? When do I get the kefel payment as the shomer? When I make your life easier and I just pay you for it. But in this case, I made you go to court with me. I didn't just pay right away. I schlepped you to court for me to take this oath to claim I don't owe you the money. And only then after did I pay. But because of that burdensome process of going to the court and taking the oath, I caused you a big pain in the neck that you had to go to court for, took up half your morning. I don't get the kefel for that because I bothered you. The whole reason I get the kefel is because I made your life simpler by just paying you. In this case, I didn't really make your life simpler because I took an oath first. Rava Amar Lemisha Pikadon. So Rava says, what do you mean? The shomer gets it. Kivan de Sheldon, like fail. In the end, I paid for it. What's the difference if I took a shvuah first and made you go to court? In the end, I paid for it. I paid my rights, right? I gained by paying. I gained the rights to the object. And actually, the machloket comes from how they inferred. Each one inferred from a different part of this Mishna, Bava Metzia, Daf Lamed Gimel Amud Bet. Each one inferred from one section of this Mishna something else. So let's see. So what we're going to do is we're going to read the Mishnah. We're going to read how Abaye inferred from one section, Rava inferred from a different section, and then we're going to have to say, well, how did each explain the other section, which seems to lead to the other conclusion. It's going to be a little confusing because we're going to basically first infer one thing from each part and then infer the opposite. Okay, that's what's the nature of the beast here. Titnan, as it says in this Mishnah, so you give your friend to watch either an animal or vessels, and they get lost or stolen. Shilem velo ratzali shava. We're talking about a shomer chinam. So if they decide to pay and they don't want to take an oath, okay, so this is just the beginning. We didn't get the halacha yet. So what happened here was they decide to pay. They don't want to take an oath, and that's why they paid. And shomer chinam can be nishba v'yotzei, but he decided not to take an oath. He just paid. Nimtza ganav, if we find the ganav, mishalem tashlum kefel, he pays double. Tavachu machar, if he slaughtered and sold, mishalem tashlum arba v'chamisha, he pays 4 or 5 times. Limihu mishalem, this is the important part. To who is he going to pay? Limisha pikadon etzlo. Okay, which again means the shomer. Nishba v'lo ratza l'shalem, but if he took an oath and didn't want to pay and wanted to exempt him or herself, v'nimtza ganav, and we find the ganav, we're going to say the same thing again, that mishalem tashlum kefel, he has to pay double. Okay, yeah, we didn't say yet to who. We're going to have the opposite in this part, but he pays the kefel, tabachu machar, if he slaughters and sells, mishalem tashlum arba v'chamisha, he pays 4 or 5. This isn't the important part. This is just the obvious part, because in the end, he was the thief, right? The thief, not the shomer, right? There's 3 people. There's the owner, the one watching, and the actual thief. So the thief pays, but in this case, since nishba and didn't want to pay, since he took the oath but didn't want to pay, lami mishalem labala pikadon. So nishba v'lo ratza l'shalem, right? So to who does he do it? To the owner. Okay, obviously gives it to the owner. Okay, this is pretty obvious. The question is, what can we infer from the words of this source? Okay, so this basically means, this is the basic halacha I mentioned before. If you pay, you get the kefel, the shomer. If the shomer takes the oath, the kefel goes to the original owner. That's very straightforward. But let's look at the words. Abaye diek mireisha. He says, I'm going to infer from the beginning my opinion, and Rava diek misefer. Rava's going to infer his opinion from the second part. So remember, Abaye says, once you take an oath, it doesn't matter if you paid or didn't pay. You already bothered the other person. You're already going to lose your rights to the kefel as the shomer. The shomer's not going to get. So what does Abaye say? Look at the Reisha. It says, Abaye diet mi Reisha, de katane shilem velo ratza l'shava. If you paid but didn't want to take an oath. Now, from here we can infer tama de lo ratza l'shava. The reason is because you didn't want to take an oath. That's why, again, shilem, if you pay and you didn't want to take an oath, you're going to get the kefel payment. Okay, turning now to Amud Bet. Here comes the inference. Ha nishba af al pisha shilem. It sounds here, though, that if you did take an oath, even if you paid, which is what Abaye wants to say, then you're not going to get it. The owner's going to get it because it said only if shilem v'lo ratza lishava. You took, right? You paid and you didn't want to take an oath. But what if you did take an oath? If you already took an oath, then no, you're not going to get the kefil. Rava diet misefa. He infers from the latter part. It says nishba v'lo ratza l'shalem. You took an oath and you didn't want to pay. So now it sounds like Tama, the main thing is lo ratza l'shalem because you didn't want to pay. Hashilem afal pisha nishba l'mi mashalem l'mi shapikadon etzlo. It sounds like as long as you paid, though. What was the point? You took an oath and didn't want to pay. But if you did pay, you would gain the rights to it. You would get the kefel as the shomer. And that's Rav. So now we're going to have to say, well, Abaye kasha seifa. How's he going to explain the seifa? We're going to start with Abaye and what he does with the latter part. And then we'll go back to Rava and how does he read the first part. Amar lecha Abaye, hachi katan. Abaye says no. When it says nishba v'lo ratza l'shalem, what does it mean? V'lo ratza l'shalem kodem hashavua. In other words, if originally you didn't want to pay, and then you took the oath, it doesn't matter if you wanted to pay later. Once you already take that oath, you lose your rights. That fits exactly with Abaye. So, lo ratza l'shalem kodem shvua ela la'achar shvua. The point was, again, nishba v'lo ratza l'shalem, you took an oath and didn't want to pay. What he explains there is, didn't want to pay before you took the oath. I don't care if you wanted to pay later. It's too late. You can't get the rights to the kefel because you already bothered the person, right? So then, l'mi mashalem l'bala pikadon. Then it would go back to the owner. If you already took the oath, the owner is going to get the kefel. L'rava kasha reisha. So amar l'charava. Let's just look back at the reisha. The reisha said, and let's just look at Abaye's yuk before, so we remember. So the beginning part said, shilem v'lo ratza lishava. If you took an oath, you paid and didn't want to take an oath. So comes Abaye and he says, Tama de lo ratza lishava. It all is based on, because again, he focuses on the words v'lo ratza lishava. Because as soon as you want to take an oath, it doesn't matter if you paid or not, you can't get the kefil. That was his whole point. So what's Rava going to say? Amar lecha Rava hachi katani. Shilem, he doesn't say v'lo ratza lishava, he changes it a little. He says what it means is lo ratza la'amo b'shvuato ela shilem. Again, the source said if you pay, and you didn't take an oath, but let's just focus. If you paid, you get the kefil, right? So Abaye said, but it says, and you didn't want to take an oath. Sounds like if you did take an oath, you wouldn't get it. But he says, no, it means if you paid and you didn't want to stand up to your shavua. In other words, because even if you, right? In other words, you already took an oath, and then you decide you're going to pay, you gain the rights to the kefil. That's how he reads the first part of the Mishna, which is exactly Rava. As long as you paid, we don't care if you took an oath, didn't take an oath. Once you pay, you gain your rights to get the kefil. So again, shilem v'lo ratza la'amo b'shvuato ela shilem. You didn't want to stick to your original oath, claiming it was stolen and you have no responsibility. No, you decided then to take responsibility and you paid. Well, guess what? You get the rights. L'mi mashalem, l'mi shapikadon etzlo. The shomer gains the rights. So basically, it's a little bit confusing, but we took this Mishnah, read each section as a proof for one, and then showed how each one can also read the other section that seemed to more easily prove one side and against their side, how they were able to read it according to them. But again, the main debate is, if you paid after taking an oath, would you still gain the rights to the kefil according to Rava? Yes. According to Abaye, it's too late. You're taking the oath already means you didn't go right away and take responsibility, and therefore the owner is not willing to give you rights to the kefil payment. Okay, now we get to another case. Tva'uhu ba'alim l'shomer v'nishba. So we're getting to all sorts of permutations of cases that could be. So the ba'alim go to the shomer and say, hey, you gave me an item to watch. You come back to me and you say, where's my item? V'nishba. And I take an oath. Now the question is, what's my role at this point? Am I totally out of the picture? Because I took an oath, absolved myself of responsibility, I'm done. Why is that relevant? We'll see in a minute. We're going to learn what's obvious about this is if the thief, the actual thief, okay, again, we're not talking about I lied, or maybe we'll see, maybe I lied a little bit or something, but we'll get to that soon. But assuming I claim it was stolen, and it really was stolen, v'hukar haganav, and we find the ganav, am I still relevant to the picture? Now, if the ganav, remember the ganav has two options. The ganav can either come forward and admit, and if you remember, if the ganav admits, what happens? Modeh biknas patur. The kefil is just a knas, it's a fine. If the thief admits to me or to the owner, let's say the thief admits to the owner that they stole, so they won't have to pay the owner the kefil payment. What if they admit to me? Now, in order for it to be an admission, it has to be an admission to the person who they have issue with. Now, it's tricky. The thief, okay, we'll call her Ruth. Ruth steals from me. I'm the shomer. But I already absolved myself from responsibility, which means, right, I took an oath and I'm now removed from the picture. So the issue is between Ruth and you, who's the owner. So now the question is, what if, and we'll get to the case right now, okay? I already kind of led to it, but let's read it inside. Tiva'u shomer. No, I'm a nice person. I feel responsible also because I was watching the item when it got stolen. So I also go search for the thief. You're looking for the thief. I'm looking for the thief. The police are looking for the thief. Okay, we're all looking for the thief. So if I find the thief, vehoda, and the thief confesses to me that they did it. So I find Ruth, and I found out she stole, and she confesses to me. Now, once she confesses, she's liable. The chomer, she won't be liable, kefel, even if witnesses come. But what if she confesses to me? Now, again, it's only going to be a confession if I'm still considered a party here. Tiva'u ba'alim v'kafal ve'heviu edim mi niftar ganav b'hoda'at shomer o lo niftar ganav b'hoda'at shomer. If after Ruth admits to me that she stole, and then the original owner finds Ruth, and Ruth denies having stolen your item, and then you find witnesses who can prove it, which would mean she's chayav kefel, but she's not chayav kefel because she already admitted to me. The question is her admission to me relevant? Because I'm not a party in the case. So that's the question here. I'm going to read it again. Mi niftar ganav b'hoda'at shomer. Is the ganav exempt from the kefel payment because they admitted to me? Oh, lo niftar ganav b'hoda'at shomer. Or is it, I'm just out of the picture already. So this confession was meaningless. If they confess to a random person, it's not something that's relevant. And then, right, so what does it mean it's not relevant? It means if we have witnesses later and they denied to, right, in front of court, in front of the thief, okay, in front of the person who was robbed, right, whose item it was actually. So then they would have to pay kefel. So I'm a Rava. Now, Rava is going to say, and this is very interesting, it really depends whether and there's different interpretations of this. We're going to go with the first. Rashi points out there's an opposite girsa that says something totally different, but we're going to stick with the first way of reading it, the way it appears in our text here. It all depends whether I'm a party or not here. If I took the oath and I was truthful in my oath, like it could be, I claimed, okay, so how is this going to be? What's exactly I lied? I could claim it was stolen in a way, where I was put up at gunpoint and it wasn't true. I was stolen, like from my house in the middle of the night. Okay. If I lied about the way, like that, which is a whole different category of theft, let's just say that's what I lied about, it would be different than if I told the truth under oath. So why is this? If I swore honestly, I took this oath, I said it was stolen in whatever kind of way, and that's the way it was stolen. Niftar haganav b'hoda'at shomer. Then the ganav will be exempt from the kefel because of their admission. Why is that? Because I'm still connected. Why is I'm still connected? Because let's imagine the scenario. I take this oath. I find the ganav. I take back the item. Well, are you happy for me to continue watching it? Yeah, because you asked me to watch it in the first place, and I was truthful about what actually transpired. So I'm an honest person, which means you rely on me still. And therefore, if I get it back or I get them to admit, then I'm still considered connected, because theoretically, if I were to have gotten it back from them, you would have relied on me to continue watching the item. In the end, I was watching your item, it got stolen from me, and I'm still connected. But in Besheker Nishpat, but if I lied under oath here, now, even though you don't know it, that's what's a little bit tricky here. You don't know I lied. You don't know what the truth was. But if I lied falsely, which means in the end, when you find out I lied falsely, you never would have wanted me to continue watching your item, then I'm out of the picture. Because if I do get this item back from the thief, you don't want me watching it because I lied under oath. You don't trust me anymore. So then lo niftar ganav b'hoda'at shomer. Then the admission that they said to me is an irrelevant admission because I'm not a party here. I'm not connected anymore. Okay, that's one interpretation of how to read the sugya, because it is not the most convincing answer, but you can ask the questions on it, which is why there's a different version. But we'll stick with this version. By Rava. So now Rava further asks, Amad li shava b'sheker v'lo honichuhu. This is like one of those Rabbi Yirmiyah type questions. What if I was planning to lie falsely? Okay? So I lose this item, it gets stolen, and I wanted to say it got stolen at gunpoint, and it really wasn't. It was stolen in the middle of the night. So now, which again is a different type of theft. It's not just I lied about the details, but it's a totally different type of theft. There's different laws relating to it. So I got up to lie falsely. Now, you didn't know I was lying falsely, but you said, don't bother. I'll exempt you even without the oath. Okay, you don't like people taking oaths. I don't know. You decided you'll exempt me anyway. Mahu, what's the situation? Well, I didn't actually lie under oath. I just wanted to. So the question is, did that make me irresponsible enough that you wouldn't have wanted to give it back to me if you were to find out that later that I actually planned to lie falsely? But since I didn't actually do it, right, is that considered something or not? That's a whole interesting thing, which is just because I wanted to do something but never ended up doing it, does that mean it's as if I'm not a trustworthy person anymore? Because who knows if I would have gone through with it in the end anyway. So anyway, that's an interesting question. Take it. We don't have an answer. Rav Kahana matnehachi. So this whole version of Rava's question, Rava's first question, Rava's first answer to the original question, and then the second question, this was Rav Kahana's version. Rav Tavyume matnehachi, but Rav Tavyume had a different version. The Bai Rava nishba l'sheker mahu teku. Rava asked, is it going to be different? What we thought before was obvious there's going to be a difference. Now, according to this version of the question, Rava's whole question was, what if I lie under oath and I lied when I took the oath? Okay? What if I lied when I took that oath? Is that going to change things? And then if the thief admits to me, will that be considered a hoda'ah or not to exempt from the kefal payment? And that's the whole question. It's not so clear according to the second version. What was clear in the first version is a question. In the second version, in Teku, we don't have an answer. Okay. Continuing with our different situations here. Teva'u ba'alim l'shomel v'shilem v'hukar haganav. Okay, so they claim the owner comes to me and says, where's my item? And I just say, I'm going to pay. Okay, here it is, even though I didn't really steal it, but I didn't keep it for myself. I said, I'm going to pay you the value. I say it got stolen, I didn't take an oath. V'ukar ganav, and then we find the ganav. Tiva'u ba'alim v'hoda. This is going to be the flip case, because if you remember, it's the exact same thing we just said before, but in the reverse. In this case, because I paid and I didn't take an oath, I get the kefal payment. But what if the original owner went and found the thief, and the thief admitted to him, and then, or to her, okay, let's say you're the original owner, Tva'u ba'alim v'hoda. So you help me find the thief, even though I already paid you and I'm going to get the rights to the kefil, but you do something nice and you feel connected. It was your item to begin with. You help me find the thief, and the thief admits to you that they did it, confesses. And then Tva'o shomer, but since in the end I need to get the item back because I'm the one who already paid it out, and I get the item back and the kefil, v'kafal, and then deny the claim. V'hevi. By the way, there's a whole discussion. If the actual item comes back, even though I paid you for it, you would get the original item because it was your item. I'll just get my money back that I paid you for it. But Tva'o shomer v'kafal v'hevi. But if I get the thief, and the thief denies the claim, and then I bring witnesses, so I should get the kefil. On the other hand, the thief already admitted to you. So are you a party still or not? Because in the end, it's between me and the thief. Niftar ganav b'hoda'at ba'alim olo. So again, since the thief admitted, they don't have to pay kefil, or not. Maybe they do, because they admitted to someone who wasn't connected. Mi amrina masei amrle shomer leba'alim. I could go to the original owner and say, listen, you took money for it already. You have nothing to do with this anymore. Oh, Dilma, and again, you'd have to say you have nothing to do with the kefil payment. You obviously have to do with the item because you'll get your original item back, but you're not connected with this kefil anymore because I gain rights to that. Oh, Dilma, okay, this is what I grew up as saying, some kind of help is the kind of help that helping's all about, and some kind of help is the kind of help we all can do without. So this is the second. Basically, you can say to me, listen, you did something nice to me because you paid for the item instead of waiting till we found the thief, which who knows if we'd ever find the thief. So I also did you a favor by helping you find the thief. I went looking for the thief to help you. Now, why does it help? It doesn't help me because in the end, because the thief admitted to you, it's now going to cost me. I'm not going to get that double payment, right? Tar chinam b'tar ganav. I tried to help you by helping you find the ganav. Therefore, shakal anan didan ushkol atidach. Therefore, you take what's yours and I'll take what's mine, okay? Which could mean, right, I got my payment for the original item and you get, the payment back now from the thief, but you're not going to end up getting the kefel because, the thief already confessed to me. So again, you were helping me to find the ganav, but it ended up hurting me. Take. So we don't know the answer. We're left with the question. Okay, last sugya for today. Itmar. Nigneva ba'ones v'hukar haganav. Now the question is, it was stolen ba'ones. This is going to be relevant because even a shomer sachar who gets paid to watch, if it was at gunpoint, they're going to be exempt. Okay, if it was stolen in the middle of the night, they won't be exempt. They'll have to pay. They won't be able to take an oath. But we're giving a case where both a shomer chinam and a shomer sachar will be able to be exempt if they take an oath. Now, if it was stolen ba'ones and hukar ganav and we find the ganav. So now the question becomes, we're going to have a machloket between Abaye and Rava. Let's just read it inside and then we'll explain. Amar Abaye, im shomer chinam who, if he was watching the item or she was watching, let's say I'm the shomer chinam and I was watching your item for free. And now we know who the thief is. So the question is, now I didn't yet take an oath to exempt myself. Ratza, I have two possibilities in front of me, is what Abaye says, and I could do either one. Ratza say modin. If I want, I could go to this thief and say, give me the money back, and then I'll be able to return you your item, right? Or ratza nishba. Or I could just say, I know we found the ganav, but you know what? I don't want to be part of this. I'm just going to take an oath and exempt myself because I can do that. But im shomer sacharhu osei modin ve'eno nishba. But if I'm a shomer sachar and I got paid to watch this item, even if it got stolen in a way that I'm not liable, if we know the ganav and we found out who stole it, it's my responsibility to go to court and deal with it, not you, the original owner. I have to deal with it because for what reason was I getting paid if not for this? I got paid to watch the item, so now I have to deal with it. I have to deal with getting it back. Again, even though theoretically I could be exempt for this, but because we know where if we didn't find the thief, so I could just take an oath. But since I didn't take an oath yet and we found the thief, I'm liable, but not in a shomer chinam case. Comes Rava and he says, he's actually more strict in this case. Usually Abaye is more strict. Again, strict is one, strict for the shomer, lenient for the owner. Rava says, I can't take an oath to exempt myself, even if I'm a shomer chinam. Okay, and Rashi says the reason is, okay, you have to help someone. Like I took responsibility for this. I was a shomer, even if I wasn't getting paid, I'm responsible. So now they want to suggest that Rava, maybe he disagrees with Rav Huna bar Avin. Because he said you have to be responsible to get the item back no matter what. You can't just take a shavua once, again, assuming we know who the ganav is, you have to deal with the whole court case and getting it back. We all know it's not always so easy to get an item back. Deshalach Rav Huna bar Avin nigneva ba'ones v'hukar ganav im shomer chinam hu ratza osei modin ratza nishba v'im shomer sachar hu osei modin ve'eno nishba. Okay, so Rav Huna bar Avin basically says exactly what Abaye said, which goes against Rava because he distinguished between shomer chinam shomer sachar. So it sounds like Rava disagrees with this statement of Rav Huna bar Avin, but they say not necessarily because Amar lecha Rava could say hacha b'mayaskinan kigon shekidem v'nishba. It could be that was a case where they already took the oath. And that's why if I shomer chinam, I can just be done with it and say, this isn't my responsibility. But they say, but it's not what it says. It says, haratza osei modin. And it gave one possibility of, you could be the one who brings the guy to court. Ratza nishba kamar. Or you could go take an oath. It sounds like you didn't already take an oath. To which they say, no, hachi kamar, what it really meant was, ratza shomer chinam omei b'shvuato. Ratza osei modin. If the shomer chinam wants, the way we're going to read nishba doesn't mean you can take an oath. It means you can stick to your oath and say, I'm already done. I already took an oath. I don't have to deal with this. But if he didn't take an oath yet, then maybe Rav Huna bar Avin would say, if you didn't take the oath yet, well then shomer chinam would have to deal with the thief. Basically, what we're saying is he doesn't necessarily disagree with Rav. Okay. Rabba Zuta Bai Lahachi, last part about this sugya. Now we have a third opinion, although some people think he's talking about something a little different than Rava and Abaye, but we'll stick with it. He kind of disagrees. He has a different approach, and he says this was his question. Nigneva ba'ones v'hichzir gana bebeit shomer umeta b'pshi'a mahu. What if it was stolen ba'ones, meaning the shomer wasn't responsible anymore, and then the ganav brought it back, though, to the shomer. Now, a shomer chinam shomer sachar is basically exempt once it's stolen from them. But if the ganav returned it to them and not to the original owner, and then meta b'pshia, and then it died while it was in the shomer's house. So now here's an interesting question. Do you say, mi amrinan kevan denigniva ba'ones kal yaleh shmirato? If it was stolen ba'ones, where you're not responsible for it anymore, and then it gets back to you, maybe your shmira is over. Your shmira is over, it's broken. As soon as, therefore, you assume no responsibility anymore beyond that point. So if they return it to you, you're not a shomer anymore. Or do we say, oh, dilma kevan da hadra l'shmirato? Or since he brought it back to you, well, you became the shomer again. You reverted back to what you were before. So yes, it was stolen from you by gunpoint, but once it comes back to you, you go back to being the shomer. And with that, we have a takeover. So there's different questions about whether, according to Abaye and Rava, this would be obvious, or maybe this is different from what they're talking about in general. And therefore, because one is these are two different things. One is, are you obligated to deal with the ganav to get it back from them? And one is, are you still a shomer? And those are two totally separate issues, potentially, in which case this doesn't really have anything to do with the previous. Okay, with that, we'll finish. We'll start with the new Mishna. Tomorrow, quick review. We had a whole bunch of questions, right? Kefel, canceling out. Chomesh, does it always do that? Depending on the scenario. What is the issue that causes it? Is it the mammon? Is it the shvua? We said it was the mammon. Then we had another question on that. What about 2 chumshim? Could you have to pay theoretically 2 kefels or 2 chomeshes? And we said yes. Then we had this big machloket Abaye and Rava. If you pay right away, obviously you get the rights to the kefel, the shomer. But if you took an oath first, you lose the rights to the kefel, right? And it goes back to the original owner or not. That was machloket Abaye and Rava. Proved how each one saw it from that Mishna, and how each one then read the Mishna of the other, to prove them. Then we got to these issues where if we have 2 players there, the shomer and the original, right? Does the shomer leave the picture once they take the oath? Once they pay, are they the only ones in the picture and the Baalim is no longer in the picture? What if they admit to one of them and not the other, right? Does their admission, if they're no longer in the picture, is the admission of the thief relevant or not to exempt from the kefel payment? And then we got to this last case about the nigneva ba'ones. In other words, once you find the thief and the original person hadn't yet taken an oath, so the shomer, is it the shomer's responsibility to get the money back from the thief, or can he just say, oh no, it goes back to you, the original owner, you deal with it? And depending on what type of shomer it is, maybe, or maybe it doesn't depend, maybe no matter what, the shomer is responsible. With that, and then we had that final question of Rabba Zute, which means Rabba the small person, a different Rabba, does the person revert back to being a shomer, right? Once it was stolen, is it possible the shomer, if the shomer gets back the stolen item, do they revert back to being a shomer, or is there connection done between him and the owner and he's no longer a shomer because the shmirah ended with the theft? Okay, with that, we'll end for today. Moving on to new topics tomorrow.